Amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But under the right circumstances, a producer could make more money with a flop than he could with a hit. Yes, it's quite possible.
Welcome to the NFC Least Show, the only show keeping the NFC East honest. Williams, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Never better.
It's been a long time since we last spoke. All right, we're continuing our ALL-2000s team, our off-season series. Last episode, we did the offensive line, some spicy takes in there. The only one player we agreed on, big old Sean O'Hara, anchoring it. I'm excited to see what we got coming up next. We're going to be talking secondary and wide receivers. So finishing out the defense and starting to build out our offenses a little bit more. I like pairing these guys up because we also get to, imagine what it's like, these matchups are like. And I think the NFC East in the 2000s had amazing, like Hall of Fame level talent at both these positions.
Yeah, certainly. I think, I almost feel like the depth wasn't that amazing after a certain extent, but the elite of the elite talent is some of the best to ever play the game. So.
Yes, 100%. All right, so let's dive into it. Do you want to do corners first? I feel like wide receivers is gonna be fun.
let's do corners.
Let's do corners and safeties first. So
okay.
All right, let's just do left corner, right corner. Who do you got at left corner, man?
I've got Troy Vincent.
Troy Vincent. I went the opposite end of the 2000s, but I also picked I picked Asante Samuel.
Asante Samuel. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went very pure kind of cover corner, like interception machine type guy. I went again, like for those of you who may not know, I'm really trying to approach this team in like a physical 2000s aspect with like basically just like who would get featured on like Jacked Up and other just kind of bring the violence type play style. And I think Troy Vincent is the closest you can get to that at cornerback.
I think you're spot on. Honestly, this was between Asante and Troy Vincent for me. But I think what I was thinking when architecting this defense was I have my anchor. I was going for pass. I was going for the Howard Roseman special, like pass rush up front, try to generate turnovers, right? And I like the idea of kind of a rangy corner, like interception hawk, hoping to get some dud pop flies coming out from the quarterback, someone that gets in the quarterback's head, makes him doubt throwing in that direction, but isn't necessarily a blank. Like I really like that fit. And I also just really love Asante Samuel. I think he got too much hate during his time in Philly because he wasn't a player like Troy Vincent. But I think he's
Right. Asante Samuel is like the Cole Hamels of football players. Like just never. Something about him is not like his forearms aren't big enough or something for Philadelphians. I don't know what it is.
It's just like there are just players that no matter how legitimately all-time great they are, Philly just does not like because they look, act, walk, talk, and play like they do. And like the funny thing is like it's not like we joke. A lot of it comes down to some veiled vestigial racism with Philly fans, but in this situation, I don't think it is. I think they legitimately love their hard hitting Troy Vincent, Bobby Taylor type corners, Right. And Asante was such an off kind of perceived as soft cornerback that like it's just like they just didn't like him. But his style of play is inimitable. And I think he's one of the best corners of all time. And I think he fits so well with what I'm trying to do on defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great pick. Certainly a disruptive guy with like a nose for the football. 9 interceptions in 2009. Definitely could do a lot. I wonder if also some of the Philly dislike is because he started his career with New England,
Yeah.
So not only is he not a homegrown boy, but he's also playing for the most hated team of the last 20 years. So something to do with that as well.
Yeah, and he did also completely live up to his reputation at sometimes of being soft, where he would try to level hits on people, but he'd often bounce right off them. So I don't.
That's like 95% of cornerbacks, though. People talk about like they're like 190 pounds. It's totally different. Yeah. Anyway, but not Troy Vincent, which is why I took him, because I am from Philly, baby, and that's how we're going to do things here.
All right. Who do you got on the right side?
I took Champ Bailey.
I also took Champ Bailey. Yeah. You can't not.
This to me was like, you want to talk about one of the best cornerbacks of all time. I think Champ Bailey is the best. Oh man. Now he's a top 3 cornerback that I've ever watched, in 20 years of watching football. Just such a good cover corner. His time in Washington, again, kind of unfortunately marred by underperformance everywhere else, but in some ways I think that just made him shine brighter. Like, he was so good with no help. And then he went to Denver and just, did the same thing that like proved that he could do it anywhere. But obviously we're just thinking about his NFC East time. But to me, this is a no-brainer pick. I mean, just everything. If you built a cornerback in the lab, I would probably build Champ Bailey.
Yeah. Again, could not say it better myself. I think just in terms of the fit on my defense too, Champ Bailey's locking down whoever he's on. And I just love the idea of, okay, a quarterback's got the ball in his hands, got to get it out in 3 seconds. I love the thought that most of the balls are going to go to Asante Samuel in that heuristic. And then like 30% of them are going to get picked off. You know what I mean? Like, like Champ's going to lock down whoever's on the other side, and your spacing and who you're going to test is going to be Asante, Yeah. And
which really plays into Asante's ball hawk strengths.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to throw towards Champ like at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Checks out to me.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Champ, can't say enough good things about Champ Bailey. Really wish he was on the Eagles. Really, I think all other 30 teams in the NFL he didn't play for could say that about Champ Bailey. Really wish.
He was also just like, the coolness factor was through the roof with Champ Bailey. His name kicks ass, and he just had a vibe about him that was like, he just knew how good he was. He was the best.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, let's go one level back. Let's do safeties. I actually picked a swing corner safety, someone that I think that can easily, if I need to play a nickel or someone in the slot, right? I also think can shift down, but can also do a job at strong safety. I'll start out just by saying that name. I picked Roy Williams to be that guy for me.
Okay. I also took Roy Williams.
There we go.
This is a classic safety. So, dude, we're finally on the same page here. This is the least contentious segment we've had so far.
I mean, I love Roy Williams for his flexibility. I think he's I think a lot about, putting it through the Eagles lens, like Malcolm Jenkins and his ability to he could play corner and coverage. He can play basically linebacker, and play run, or he can play center field. I just see Roy Williams, maybe not as physical as a Malcolm Jenkins, but similar type of versatility in the secondary, can do everything and can do it above average or at a all pro level, Yeah.
I think Roy Williams is just a good classic 2000s player. If there's one thing about him, maybe the knock on him is a straight line speed, but he also basically forced the league to outlaw the horse collar tackle.
Yeah.
Because that was his go-to move. I kind of hated him at that time, but in retrospect, when you're building an all 2000s team, especially when you're like me and you're building it around kind of violence, you have to have Roy Williams on that squad. I think he had an edge to him, and I think he's definitely a bright spot on an otherwise kind of underwhelming Cowboys secondary of that era.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up the horse collar, because that is a staple of the NFC East in the 2000s. Just, we're the division that got the horse collar banned. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I think of Roy Williams, I think of him like horse collaring like Ike Hilliard or somebody, and me like being on the couch just screaming furiously. It's just a vibe. There's something very nostalgic about Roy Williams. So.
Yeah, 100%. Now, if we don't agree on who the last safety is, I'm literally going to punch you in the face. It's Brian Dawkins. It has to be Brian Dawkins.
It's Brian Dawkins. Yes, yeah. One of the best safeties ever. You hit me with the spiel this time.
Ah, man. What? Oh, man. I'm really not prepared.
All right.
No. Let me do this. It's just I get really emotional when talking about Brian Dawkins. Like, literally, I can't. What a player. Like, literally can trust him to do anything on the football field. I would trust him to be running back. I would trust him to be a wide receiver. Like, not necessarily be good. He would just be high effort and like be charismatic and like he's just a consummate football player. And his ability to play center field, but also with such almost like a linebacker's nose for the ball as well, coming up in run support. It's hard to imagine a better, just like professional football player than Brian Dawkins. Just like as a man, as a teammate, as a performer, as an icon in the city. I don't
know if non-Philly people, maybe they do, realize how beloved Brian Dawkins is. Like, I think he's probably everybody's favorite, like many people's favorite Eagle of their whole lives.
Yep.
You know, like if you're under the age of 60 or over the age of like 15, Brian Dawkins is probably your favorite Eagle, and it's probably not particularly close.
Yeah. He's the prototype for how Philadelphia wants their football players to play.
He really is. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, just very physical, does a little bit of everything, could stop the run, could even sack the quarterback. Captain, like emotional leader of the defense for sure.
And so many signature plays, if you're an Eagles fan, that just stick out. Like, I'm half joking about being able to play offense, but he did have the incredible fake punt touchdown in the early 2000s as well that began to start the legend. The flying strip fumble against the Giants. The suplex against the
suplex is what I was thinking. The suplex is what comes to mind for me. I hated Brian Dawkins, which is only a compliment, you know.
Yeah, I think he's that player for the division, and I miss him. I wish football had Brian Dawkins still.
Yeah, another. You know, it was kind of a shame. Another guy that went to Denver also, him and Shane Bailey.
Yeah.
It was weird that he went to Denver to me. They could have found a way to keep him around. I don't know.
I mean, that ending, I think we all agreed, didn't go the way it probably could have or should have. I think the Eagles got a little bit too spreadsheet nerd about their cap.
Yeah, right. I get it, but
he wasn't necessarily a expensive player at that point in his career, and it was just like on principle. Like, it was like we don't sign safeties past this age, you know.
Yeah.
And we're just very cold and logical about it, like they would for most other players. And most other players, you don't really care that much, and it makes organizational sense. But for a guy that is that beloved and his value kind of transcends what he gives on the football field, really, it was a little bit of a sour taste end there in Philly.
Yep.
But yeah,
okay. I mean, that's the closest we've gotten to.
The only disagreement is Asante and Troy Vincent, but I also understand why we disagree. I don't think
that's a polite disagreement.
Yeah, that's a gentleman's disagreement. I think I understand what you're going for on your team, and if it were me, I'd pick Troy Vincent too, but it wasn't, and I'm trying to get those interceptions, baby. You know?
Yeah. I'm trying to get forced fumbles.
Yeah,
I don't care about interceptions really much at all.
I'm interested in wide receivers. Where do you want to go? Slot?
Yeah,
right,
let's start in the slot, I think.
All right. My slot receiver is Santana Moss.
Okay, same here.
I think we actually might be completely aligned on this.
I think maybe we'll see.
All
There's
right.
one that I'm not sure about, but we'll see.
I think Santana Moss is underrated in like the macro level, just like NFL league legacy, and I think it's just because he languished on Washington for the entire 2000s. But literally, like the reason why I picked him for the slot is like he's one of the few wide receivers that I think you can legitimately say can line up at all three positions and be a threat. Like he's a great deep ball threat. He had some size and some physicality to him. Like he could wrestle with a corner to get a ball out of the air, but he had the change of direction and shiftiness to run a full route tree out of the slot as well. And I think that especially in this like mythical all 2000 scenario where you can pair him with like two other like all pros, right? It's just like a no brainer. Like throw Santana Moss in the slot and your offense is probably going to be unstoppable.
Yeah. I can't think of another receiver in the mid to late 2000s who got separation like Santana Moss, like Randy Moss. I get like very few guys. Like, and I think part of his issue was he was a deep ball threat who spent his whole career being thrown to by like the Jason Campbells of the world.
Yeah.
Even in for the Jets, I mean, probably Chad Pennington or somebody, right? Like not strong armed quarterbacks by any means or super accurate ones. And he was always the focal point of the other team's secondary. And I think sure-handed, so fast, just home run hitter, Deshaun Jackson type before Deshaun Jackson, kind of guy that can change a game in a second. So I completely agree. There was no other pick for me at the slot.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with, what you're saying about Santana Moss as well, where I think also maybe with like one other wide receiver and a great quarterback, you could also get flexible with him and ask him to do more and be more of a multidimensional threat. But in every offense he was ever in, he was basically just like, just run, just go. We need something to like open up the space for like all these other mid-tier players.
Quentin Portis needs to get the ball handed off to him, and you're a distraction. Yeah,
which is just such a waste for I think legitimately one of the best wide receivers in the mid 2000s. But his career was what it was. Now we can have new life on our all 2000s team.
I'm sure Santana Moss is doing okay. I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. We should look into that. But I guarantee you that of Washington fans, who they remember fondly, Santana Moss is disproportionately high up on that list relative to general NFL awareness. Just because I think anyone of you who watched a lot of him knows how good he was.
Yeah.
And fun fact: the Giants drafted his little brother, Sonoris Moss.
Yeah.
In like the second round. Complete bust status. I mean, never.
I remember
not even close to the same thing. I think he also had injuries the whole time, but like, it's like, he's like Santana Moss, but like smaller and slower and more fragile, no killer instinct. It's like, okay. But I think that says the fact that the Giants drafted this dude in the second round.
He got the Santana Moss bump.
Exactly. They knew. They knew. They were like, man, if this guy's like 80% of the guy that we play every year, we have to have him on the team.
Yeah.
All
right. Who do you got lining out in wide receiver 2 out on the right?
Oh, wide receiver 2. I mean, I guess the question is for me, like, these next two guys are kind of similar. So it's a question of like who you want as your X and your Z receiver.
Yeah.
For me, I took as my wide receiver 2, Terrell Owens.
All right.
I mean, just kind of what Brian Dawkins is to safeties, Terrell Owens is to wide receivers in terms of being about as complete and as technically gifted as you can expect to have. Obviously, kind of a relative head case, but that's also kind of something you're okay with in a wide receiver, you know?
Yeah.
I'm okay if my wide receiver is a crazy diva who puts up stupid numbers and trash talks and riles up opposing fans. Like, I'm into all of that. So Terrell Owens, big, physical, great hands, can do everything, you know, red zone threat, open field, and like demands double coverage, which again, when you have Santana Moss going deep, suddenly the world's kind of your oyster, can run every route. Like this was a no-brainer for me. Who did you take?
I mean, I'll just say Terrell Owens as well, just because I want to build up the suspense to see if we potentially disagree with the third. Right.
Okay.
I do have it as my 1, not my 2. Whether it matters or not. Really, these are 2 outside guys. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, right. I didn't really make too much of a distinction, but
I completely agree with you. I hope that Philly is over the breakup at this point and can see Terrell Owens for what he is. I understand why we were hurt at the time, but the dude is an absolute stud, and like I think he deserves to be an Eagles legend and a Cowboys legend for what it's worth. You know, like probably one of the few what's the word I want to say? Like left a similar legacy at 2 different NFC East teams, right. Such that like almost bridging the gap between Cowboys and Eagles fans.
The great unifier, Terrell Owens.
Exactly. You know, but it's like I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, not a burner, but very like fast enough speed to break the top off. Size, knew how to use his body well in the air. Just literally, like, throw a ball anywhere in like the general neighborhood of Terrell Owens, and there's a 95% chance he's coming down with it. And then he's going to score and then make the other team feel terrible about the fact that just the mere fact that they had to play Terrell Owens that week. You know what I mean? Like, and that's like, man, I love that attitude. I loved it when he was with the Eagles. Of course I hated it when the divorce happened, you know, like, but I think I'm over it. Like, I can see him for what he is, and I just appreciate him as a player. Like, legitimately one of the best players in the 2000s. Like an NFL legend, you know?
Yeah, I think there's no weakness in Owens' game, and he is just so technical, you know? Yeah. Like, his routes were perfect. That's the thing with him that I think people kind of don't appreciate is it was very clear that he was like a workaholic. You know, in addition to being naturally very gifted, but he wasn't like Randy Moss gifted. You know, he was also just an obsessive. Like he did have the details. He knew what routes he wanted to run. His hands were impeccable. Like I think that's part of why have to have him on the team.
I think that's part of why he played so late into his career. It's like you know, he wasn't putting highlights down with the Bengals and the Bills, etc., right? But it's like he was good enough to be a player into his late 30s as a journeyman because he was that technically gifted, and he could still force the defense into bad positions late into his career, you know?
Yep.
Even if it was more of like, I'm going to open up the offense for the rest of the team by that time, you know? It was still like, he could still do it, and legitimately one of the best wide receivers of all time.
Yep.
You know? Couldn't not pick him. All right, so we're aligned on the first 2.
Yep.
Do I say my last one first?
Yeah, do it.
I went with Plax.
Same here, man.
Yeah, here we go.
You had to do it. Yeah, dude, this is the most peaceful Kumbaya episode ever. This is unreal.
Like, how could you, like, I defy anyone going through this exercise that wouldn't pick these 3.
Right. It actually, there's not that much choice behind them, in my opinion. And these 3 work so well together.
That's what I'm saying. It's like not just how good these players are, but just imagine what a 3-headed monster of Santana Moss, Terrell Owens, and Plaxico Burress is. You know?
Dude. Yeah. So you want to walk through Plaxico, or should I?
I mean, you do Plaxico. He was your guy.
All right. Yeah, I think obviously Plexico is just a ridiculous red zone threat. Like just a total jump ball, go get it, 6'5" target, with good hands, had good vertical speed as well. You know, could kind of be like a slip behind the defense and raise his hand up. But for me, really, is just a guy who's like, what cornerback do you put on him where you feel really good about the one-on-one matchup in like a corner fade situation? Like that's a ball that Plexico is going to come down with. And in addition, actually, he does a lot of the little things. He was a good blocker because he was so tall and so lanky. He could kind of keep guys at bay. Physical when he needed to be, loved going up against physical cornerbacks and just dominating them. So not a difficult choice for me, really. I think he adds that perfect complement of size and easy possession. Like, okay, it's 3rd and 6. Like, T.O., if I don't want to throw to T.O. for some reason, I'll throw to him, you know?
Yeah. It seems weird to say, but like of these three, Plexico is like my money guy. You know what I mean? It's like there's... Not that I think that like there's really any flaw in Santana Moss's or Terrell Owens' game, especially if they're on the same team, and any reason why they can't get open in any situation. But if for some reason the defense has the clamps down on my first two, it almost doesn't matter who they throw on Plexico Burress. If I throw it anywhere in that monster catch radius on like a 6-yard in route, or if I need the touchdown in the red zone, the fade is basically unbeatable. It's like his physicality, his size just creates so many plays you can run to him that are basically just easy money. It's just, you know, it's going to be what you want to do with it. It's a first down, touchdown, you know, he's money, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think he really doesn't get as much love as he deserves from Giants fans. I've always loved Plexico. People just have a bad taste in their mouth because of the whole gun thing.
Yeah.
Obviously it makes a lot of memes. It's funny to reference. But the Giants were not going to win that year anyway. That's what people say, is that like Plexico lost the Giants the Super Bowl. Anybody who was really watching that Giants team week in and week out knew that they were fading already due to other reasons. They were just they hit their peak way too early and they were never going to make it over the hump.
Yeah.
And I also just think Plexico had a certain, I don't know if we really want to get into this sort of thing, but like Plexico had like a type of swagger that in the mid 2000s among a certain populace was seen as like threatening or you're laughing, but like, you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I'm laughing because I've already called Philly racist earlier in the episode. Right. We could just call it what it is.
Yeah, people are racist.
Plexico got a bunch of North Jersey suburbanites uptight and protective of their kids. That's basically what it was. It was awful, but it was like the weird energy and vibe, just like, you know, like fans on some level, I feel like gravitate towards players they feel like they can have a beer with. And Plexico gave off this really, you know,
Plexico just scared them. He just scared them, but like for not like good reasons. Like just like something people projected a certain personality onto Plexico or something, that he was whiny, pouty, didn't try hard, all this stuff.
Yeah,
that I just don't think was ever actually.
I don't agree with those judgments at all.
Not true in like his production. You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my 2 cents on Plexico. I think he's one of my favorite Giants ever. You have to.
Yeah.
He's a perfect fit. Yeah.
Wow. One disagreement. And a gentleman's disagreement as well.
No Todd Harriman's Larry Allen breakdown.
All right. I think one thing I want to tease before we close is we got to figure out who is the best team at some point at the end of this. I think let's start teasing now. If any of the listeners, we're gonna put out a poll at the end of this, and we want to know who you think the best team is. We're pretty evenly matched based on this episode, but there's definitely some X factors, I think, up front, and maybe potentially in the quarterback and halfback position that could turn the tide. I want to know whether my team's better, and I want the fans to decide.
Okay. I hope that the vaunted Todd Harriman's fan club just is not aware of this.
Harriman's Hive, assemble. We got to take this guy down.
I won't lobby too openly for my team, but I stand steadfast that the Todd Harriman's haters outweigh the believers out there.
This poll is just going to be an opinion poll on Todd Harriman. It's going to have nothing to do with any of the players we picked.
It's just a complete, like, do you like Todd Harriman's? Yes or no? Like, that's the whole...
All right, man. We got one more of these to do. I'm looking forward to it. Until then, have a good one.